Hey, what's up guys, Brandon Washington here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at two amazing gimbals that I own, the Zhiyun Crane 2 and the DJI Ronin-m, and figuring out which one works best and which one is easier to use. And hopefully by the end of this video you'll know which one you should pick up if you're on the fence between the two. Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for checking out my channel. If this is your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, because on this channel, I'm all about creating content that helps other content creators learn more about filmmaking, tips, tricks, photography, and all that good stuff. But like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be taking a look at two gimbals, the Zhiyun Crane 2 and the DJI Ronin-m. Now, I own both of these gimbals and I love them both for their own individual reasons. Now, I've had the DJI Ronin-m for almost 2 years now, and I just recently picked up the Zhiyun Crane 2, and since having it, it has really become a huge workhorse in my arsenal of gear. And so since having them both, I've gotten lots of comments on my Instagram, and I've gotten lots of questions here on YouTube as far as which one is best and which one you should buy and all that good stuff. So I decided, why not put the two to the test and go ahead and make a video telling you guys why I like each one, what I don't like about each one, and overall what I think might be, some major factors as far as which one you choose to get. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and knock out some of the specs on both of these guys that are just facts. It's not my opinions, these are just facts about each one. Starting off with the DJI Ronin-m. So the DJI Ronin-m can hold up to 8 pounds. It has a 3-hour battery life. By itself, completely empty, it weighs 5 pounds, and it has a companion iOS and Android app. Now, with the Zhiyun Crane 2, it can actually hold up to 7 pounds, or 7.05 pounds. It has a battery life of 12 to 18 hours. It also weighs 8 pounds. It also has an iOS and Android app, just like the DJI Ronin-m. All right, so the major two things that separate these two stabilizers from one another is that with the Zhiyun Crane, this is gonna be a one-handed use. Now, yes, there is an accessory that you can purchase to go alongside it to turn it into a two-handed gimbal, but I'm going to be reviewing them as they come. So the Zhiyun Crane is going to have a one-handed configuration, whereas the DJI Ronin actually has a two-handed configuration. So first things first, let's talk about setup. Now, setting up the DJI Ronin is not very difficult. However, it does take time. Whenever you get your DJI Ronin straight out of the box, there's going to be more parts that you have to put together in order for this thing to work. So you've got your handles, you've got your top rods that have to go into the main DJI Ronin body, and then from there you can put this onto what is another piece, your tuning stand, and you have to put the entire Ronin, once it's assembled, onto the tuning stand in order to then start the balancing process. Now, I personally find that balancing the Ronin is not a very difficult process. However, if you do have a larger camera like the 1DX and you're balancing that on your Ronin-m, at least with the tuning stand that I have, I find that my Ronin actually kind of hits the ground when I'm trying to balance it. Now, full disclosure, I used to have a Ronin-m before this one, and my old tuning stand could actually lift up, so I'd never had this problem. However, once that one was stolen and I had to buy a new one, now I find that these new tuning stands don't extend any higher, so I'm constantly dealing with an issue of my Ronin hitting the ground. Quick fix for this: take the top part of the tuning stand off, attach that to a light stand, for example, and then you'll have no issues because you can have your entire tuning system much higher up off the ground. All right, now when it comes to setting up the Zhiyun Crane, I find that this is probably one of the biggest features that I love most about the Zhiyun Crane, is that it is so easy. Right out of the box, you're actually going to get these little tripod legs that you can screw right into the bottom of the Zhiyun Crane. And then your Zhiyun Crane can actually stand completely on its own. From there, balancing it literally takes less than 2 minutes and you're up and running. Now, unlike with the Ronin where you have to have extension rods, this guy, for my 1DX, there was a little hack that I had to do, which I have a whole video on how to do that if you find yourself in that situation. But once that hack is done, you don't actually have to make any additional adjustments on that axis, which makes it super fast to go ahead and balance the Zhiyun crane. All right, so now moving on to usage. Now, when using the DJI Ronin-m, I find that it is a super smooth gimbal. I mean, the Ronin-m produces some amazing footage, no matter if you're, moving from side to side, which normally is pretty difficult on electric gimbals. Also, just being able to dial in your motors the exact way you want. I normally find that using the Ronin-m produces some of the smoothest gimbal type work, especially for small to medium-sized cameras. Now, with that being said, as great as it is to run around and use this thing, it gets heavy and it gets heavy quick. The Ronin-m, although it is a light gimbal in and of itself, just because of the way you have to hold it, stabilizing it with two arms, normally meaning locking in your arms, locking in your back, you typically tend to get fatigued using this thing fairly quickly, which means you either need to bring an assistant out on set with you just to hold it, or you have to keep your tuning stand really close by you to be able to set this thing down after you get your shots. Now, I've actually used this thing for multiple days at one point. I was actually shooting a music festival, and at that festival, I used my Ronin pretty much the entire time. And the nice thing about it was, even though it was heavy, being able to kind of set it down on the tuning stands did make it a little bit easier, but the shots I got out of it was definitely worth it. So although this thing is very heavy, it is one of those pros and cons where you have to decide, is the shot worth the fatigue that you're gonna get? One last little thing I wanna throw in about the Ronin-m is that because you have these great bars at the top, you can mount so much to them. I mean, I've had monitors, I've had audio equipment, I've had lights, the list just goes on and things that you can actually attach to these top bars. And so because you have all this extra real estate, there are tons of little accessories that you can use, whether that's with a cold shoe or with an arm to attach on here, so that way you can add multiple things to your Ronin. Now again, this does add extra weight, but it is nice to be able to attach more things to your gimbal, so that way you can monitor everything correctly. Now, usage is actually the reason why I bought the crane too, and that is I wanted it for something that was very good with run and gun, and that is exactly what the Zhiyun Crane 2 is designed for. I mean, this one-handed configuration is perfect for running around and shooting. The ability to just have everything I need in one hand, and then if that arm gets tired, to be able to just switch it, and then if I need a break altogether, be able to set the whole thing down on those tripod legs is just amazing. I mean, this is something that as a 1DX shooter, I've never been able to have except with my glide cam, but I was never a huge fan of the glide cam, and so this has been great with having it all built into a motorized gimbal. The other thing that I like about this is because it has like underslung mode and because it's so light, I've been able to actually use this on like some crazy type of shooting situations. For example, just a couple days ago, I was doing a shoot and I actually hung out in the back of a car. Once I put it in underslung, I could actually hold it with one hand and get some awesome shots out of it while using the other hand to hold on inside the car to make sure I didn't fall out, obviously. But this is the type of situations, and the reason why I picked up this gimbal was because I wanted it for those shooting situations. Now, with that being said, I will say that the Zhiyun Crane is not as smooth as the DJI Ronin. Now, primarily it has to do with the control over the motors, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. But for the most part, the issue that I keep running into is that with the Zhiyun Crane, it typically wants to kind of keep itself, I don't know exactly the best way to put this, it's just not smooth. Whenever I'm doing like a side to side or a parallax shot, I find that I get more jerk and jitter out of this gimbal than I do out of my Ronin. Now, I don't know if this has to do with the two-handed configuration. I primarily think it has to do with like how on the Ronin, I can go in the app and really dial in the sensitivity to my motors. Whereas on the Crane, I have not figured out how to do that yet. And if you guys know how to, please tell me in the comments below. But I will also say that with the Crane 2, I typically see more of that bounce or more of that movement along the Z-axis on the Crane than I do on the Ronin. Now, I 100% think this has to do with the difference between a two-handed configuration and a one-handed configuration. There's just more points of contact with two hands to be able to keep that Z-axis, which typically is something that people see in almost no matter what type of gimbal, whether that's a Steadicam or motorized. That Z-axis is the hardest one to keep locked in, and so that's why most big Steadicam operators, you see they have the vest with the arm, and all of that is to try to help keep that Z-axis from showing up in the camera. And so where on the Crane 2 I see more of that, it's not really bad, but you will see it if you're not careful. All right, so now that we've covered setup and usage, now I just want to get into a couple little extra reasons why you might choose one over the other. All right, so one of the big things that the DJI Ronin has going for it is that it actually has something called P-Tap built right into it. Now, if you're not sure what that is, definitely do some research, and I could do a whole video on that subject by itself. But basically what it means is that it can actually provide power to certain camera accessories or camera bodies. So what this means is, for example, if you're using like a Red Raven. Red Ravens are pretty small cameras in and of themselves, but with the Ronin, you can actually strip the Raven down to basically just the body and a lens and actually provide power to the Raven from the Ronin and the Ronin's battery. Now, another thing that I like about the Ronin is that it actually comes with a physical controller. This is great if you want to have somebody who can actually focus on actually carrying and moving the Ronin and someone else worrying about framing by using the controller. Now, another thing that I love about the Ronin is that it actually gives you the option to add extended rods. As I mentioned earlier, with my Crane, I actually had to do a little hack in order to get my 1DX to balance on it. Well, that's only because the same axis that I run into the issue with on the Ronin doesn't go low enough. But on the Ronin, you have the option of buying extended rods to make that work. Lastly, the thing that I love about the Ronin in this little extra section is that the fact that the Ronin has a very, very stable and reliable app on iOS. This gives me so much control, and it's the reason why I think the Ronin is so smooth. I can dial in my Ronin settings just the way I want them to make it, pan or tilt as quickly as I move alongside it, or for follow mode and things like that. I just love how great this app works, and it gives me so much information also about my Ronin based on how well I balanced it or did not balance it. And then it also allows me to do a lot of other really neat things to make sure that my Ronin is working in tip-top shape for my usage. So those are a couple of the extras that I love about the Ronin. Moving on to the Crane, I will say the thing that I love most about the Crane that the Ronin does not have, and that is built-in follow focus with the knob to also allow me to change my camera settings. I love this feature on the Crane, and it has come in handy so many times. Now, the follow focus isn't something I use as often. However, being able to switch things like my aperture or my ISO right from the knob without actually having to touch my camera is so helpful. And I was able actually to figure out how to work this with my 1DX. You just use the USB port on the side, plug it into the small area of the USB 3.0 port, and it works no problem. And I love that now I can do this with my 1DX. Once you get your camera balanced on a gimbal, the last thing you want to have to do is start messing with your camera, because now you're pushing up against those motors. And so thank you, Zhiyun, for putting this right into the handle. It has saved me so much time and has made my shooting so much easier. The other thing that I love about the Crane that the DJI does not have is, and it sounds really simple, but the base plate is actually a Manfrotto base plate. I love this because I can quickly take my camera right off of the Zhiyun and put it right onto my tripod without switching out the plate. All right, so those are all of the pros and cons, and that is my ultimate comparison. So where do I end up lying? Now, you guys might have already kind of been able to tell this, but I lean really heavily towards the Crane 2, and that is just for ease of use. Now, don't get me wrong, I definitely still like my Ronin-m, and I'm still gonna use it, and I'm gonna keep it, and that is because some jobs just need that extra level of professionalism. However, what it's gonna come down to is time. With the Ronin-m, you definitely need more time for setup, more time for teardown, and you definitely need more people around just to kind of help you to get those shots. So depending on the job, I'm definitely going to be switching back and forth. So I hope this video helped you guys out. I hope you guys now know a little bit more about each of these, and you can maybe now make your own decision as far as which one you might want to go with. Always know that I'll have links to all the products down below in the description. Also, like I mentioned before, if you're new to the channel and you are a content creator and you're looking to learn more about gear, videography, editing, whatever it might be, make sure you leave comments down below and ask me some questions, and I'll add those into the next video. And also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because you're not going to want to miss any of the future videos I have coming out. But until the next time, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.